What's up guys, Rogue9 here, and today I've got a little video on Payday 2 for you. Specifically what I want to look at are some of the masks and what inspired their creation. If you've played the game before, you'll know that there are many masks in the game that make reference to various films, television shows, stories, historical figures, and even mythology. What we're going to be looking at today though are the masks inspired by epic heist scenes featured in various action films and crime dramas. So without further ado, let's dive right in. First up on our list we have the 1995 American crime film Heat, starring Robert De Niro, Al Pacino and Val Kilmer. This film focuses on the cat and mouse game between a group of professional robbers and the LAPD. And it has clearly had a great influence on Payday 2. One of the film's key robbery scenes shows an attack on an armored transport, which could be said to be the inspiration for all of the armored transport missions in Payday 2. But its influence goes deeper than that, since there are 3 masks in the game that are clearly based off of the film. First up, we have the Heat. Everyone loves a good pair of sunglasses, but only the cockiest, most wanted, cops be damned sons of bitches are crazy enough to rob a goddamn bank wearing them. That's you. This is quite a stylish pair of sunglasses, and their name clearly links them to the shootout scene in the film. During this scene, the robbers are wearing sharp suits, sunglasses, and they are all carrying blue duffel bags. Seem familiar? The second mask in the game inspired by the film is the Hockey Heat mask. Now the name of this mask already makes its origin quite clear, but it's the description that really seals the deal. Of course, it's a classic hockey mask, but the entire rest of the description is actually a quote from the film.
Guy told me one time, don't let yourself get attached to anything you are not willing to walk out on in 30 seconds flat if you feel the heat around the corner.
You tell him, Robert. Anyway, this mask is worn by 2 of the crew members during their key armored transport robbery. In fact, to be precise, it's actually 3 of the gang members wearing this mask. 2 of them are wearing the original white version, while 1 is wearing the exact same mask in black. It is only the newest member of the gang, named Waingro, who is the odd one out. He's in fact wearing this mask, which you might recognize as the game's hockey mask. A hockey mask is a mask worn by hockey goaltenders to protect their heads from injury. It is also an iconic robber mask, handcrafted using only high quality materials. Instead of protecting you from pucks, it protects you from being recognized while going about doing your thing. You know, the thing you do so well, stealing. The keen-eyed among you might also recognize the mode of entry the gang used to get into the armored vehicle. Anyway, long story short, if you haven't seen the film yet, I highly recommend you go and watch it. If you've already seen it, well, it might be time to go watch it again, I think. And with that, on to our second film. The Town is a 2010 American crime drama film, which makes it the most recent in our lineup. Looking at 2 of the alternative DVD covers, it becomes instantly clear what mask we'll be looking at here. It is of course the Nun. A Catholic nun may not seem like the obvious choice for a terrifying mask, unless you know an actual Catholic nun. In which case, you'll know any notions of gentle grandmotherly penguins are without merit. These bitter crones are the personification of evil, dishing out thrashings to any young buttocks within reach. Now, while this humorous description doesn't actually make any reference to the film, if we take a look at the scene in which the group raid an armored transport, I see a bit of a theme developing here. But anyway, looking at this scene, it becomes very clear that the mask in the game is an almost perfect copy of the ones used by the gangsters. Now, the connection to this mask in the game is actually quite straightforward, but I have in fact discovered another mask used in the film that is also depicted in the game. Now, if you look closely at the mask put on by Ben Affleck just now, you'll actually recognize it as the exact same mask that was used in Heat and in Payday 2. The green, white and orange coloring of the mask might initially disguise it, but the shape and the holes are exactly the same. With a little bit of ingenuity and luck by unlocking the right mask pattern and color scheme, I'm sure you could recreate a very close copy of this in the game. The film overall has very good reviews, and the focus on the relationship between Ben Affleck and Rebecca Hall's characters actually give this crime drama a unique twist, so if you haven't seen it yet, I recommend you go and watch it. The third film we'll be looking at here is Point Break from 1991, directed by Catherine Bigelow. The story in Point Break revolves around an FBI agent played by Keanu Reeves trying to track down a bank-robbing gang known as the Ex-Presidents. And I think you can see where we're going with this. As part of the Armored Transport DLC pack, Starbreeze included the masks of Richard Nixon, Bill Clinton, George W. Bush and Barack Obama. These of course are the latest three presidents of the United States, Obama, Bush and Clinton, but also Richard Nixon, who is the odd one out. But before we look into that, let's just quickly go through the mask description. Richard Nixon, the 37th. Politician, Commander-in-Chief, father. Had an ambition to serve this great nation for 8 years. He wasn't a crook for sure. The 37th was the only president who resigned from office. Among criminals, however, he remains extremely popular. So, as I was saying earlier, Richard Nixon is the odd one out in the game because he's much earlier than the other three, but in fact it's Richard Nixon who is the connection to Point Break. In the film, the ex-presidents use the masks based off of 4 consecutive presidents: Lyndon B. Johnson, Richard Nixon, Jimmy Carter and Ronald Reagan. Now the president omitted here is Gerald Ford, but he wasn't actually elected, he simply took over after Richard Nixon's abdication. So even though the overlap here is only on one of the masks, I think we can safely say that Starbreeze at least took inspiration from the film. And maybe the decision was made to use more modern presidents because they resonate better with today's audience, whereas Johnson, Carter and Reagan had been the most recent ex-presidents back in 1991. So let's see what other famous masks we can find. This one was pretty easy to find since the mask in the game is actually named Reservoir Dog, and of course it alludes to the 1992 film Reservoir Dogs, directed by Quentin Tarantino. And even though this was Tarantino's directing debut, according to Rotten Tomatoes it is actually the second highest ranked film in his career. Only Pulp Fiction from 1994 manages a higher Rotten Tomatoes score. Both of these films, of course, have achieved cult classic status nowadays and are well worth your time. So let's look at the mask. Reservoir Dog. These jades belong to 5 strangers. John was hired to kill a group of people who were about to commit the perfect crime. They all dressed the same and had code names, so they were easy to identify. However, John arrived too late to the scene. The police were already there. He made sure the strangers were all dead before he left the scene. This description clearly alludes to the film's plot, and while it makes the assertion that John Wick is somehow involved, there's no actual connection between John Wick and Reservoir Dogs. Now of course the black suits and black slim ties worn by the characters and the dark sunglasses are an iconic part of Reservoir Dogs. But what's interesting in terms of the sunglasses design in Payday 2 is that it doesn't actually match any of the models worn by the actors in the film. The pair worn by Tim Roth is the pair that comes the closest to those in the game in terms of lens design. But as you can see, the pair he's wearing has a much narrower frame. My assumption here is that this was intentional since one pair of shades in the game needs to represent all of the characters' glasses from the film. This classic Diamond Heist gone wrong should be on everyone's watch list, and if you like Payday 2, you will enjoy this film. Now with its last film featuring armed robbery, I will be the first to admit that the connection to Payday 2 is probably more coincidental than by design. But ever since the release of the Golden Grin Casino heist in Payday 2, we do have a casino robbery in which you can wear Elvis hair and glasses, so the connection to the 2001 film 3000 Miles to Graceland is there. In this film, Kurt Russell, Kevin Costner and their gang plan to rob a casino during an Elvis impersonator convention. So naturally, everyone's wearing the look. But let's examine the mask first. The mask name is simply The King. Mercy, are you bad enough of a dude or dudette to rock the royal trifecta of slick aviators, badass pompadour, and tactical sideburns? Summon forth the indomitable spirit of various used car dealers and shotgun wedding ministers all around Vegas who wore this thing all the way to success, or at least mild public awkwardness. Hail to the King! Now, final point where this film is also different from all the others is that this one had quite mixed reviews. Although an IMDb score of 5.9 out of 10 still puts it in quite solid territory. So I think if you approach this film expecting a tongue-in-cheek action film that can be quite dark at times, you have a good chance of enjoying it. So there you have it, 4 outstanding crime action thrillers that were referenced in Payday 2, and one quite solid film that kind of just ended up being referenced by accident, I guess. So I hope that's kind of whet your appetite a bit. If you haven't seen any of these films yet, let me know in the comments which ones you're most excited to see, and conversely, if you have seen them, which one's your favourite. Feel free to like and subscribe for future updates, and as always, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next episode.